PPW legends Jerry Lynn and Mikey Whipwreck. Now, let's welcome your host, Mike Freland.
Good evening, how are you? Happy Tuesday night and all of those other superlatives. My name is Mike Freland. I'm joined always by my partner, my tag team partner, my brother from another mother, a man who looks better with a beard and is not balding like I am. His name is
The Ritt.
Ritt, it's good to see you, buddy. How you been?
Not bad. Had a great show this past weekend. Went to PPW.
Man, I tell you what, they knock it out of the park every single time they have a show. Dirty Dancing was, without a shadow of a doubt, one of the most exciting events. And you and I got to do the pre-show, and a lot of fun. Got to run down the card, and hot crowd was there. And we're going to be talking to somebody from PPW as well.
Yeah, the crowd was electric from start to finish. If you guys want to check it out, this Thursday, it'll be available on Fight. My good friend, I got to sit there and catch up with a close personal friend, Ms. JC Storm.
Oh, and how did that go?
Oh, she welcomed me with open arms until I brought out the lovely jersey that's hanging behind me.
That's hanging in the background. I saw that picture on social media.
Yeah, she forgot about the bet.
Man.
Hey, don't worry. Kate Hensler, you're next. I've got to sit there and I've got to get you in a Red Sox jersey next. Hey, JC Storm even autographed it.
Oh, so it's an autographed jersey. Oh, wow. Look at you. Fancy schman. You know what? I know because you're such a big a fan. I don't know if you saw this on Twitter, but it had a logo of the Tampa Bay Rays and the New York Yankees, and it said, you know what TB and NY stands for? Too bad next year. So,
exactly.
Wow. So you got to be feeling good right now about your socks, the Bastin.
Hey, next Monday, I'll be heading all up to my favorite city in the United States, Boston.
How much money are you paying for these tickets, by the way? By the way, if for people who don't know this, Ritt spends a lot of money. And when I say a lot of money, I'm going to be making a quote from the 1990 movie Pretty Woman. Okay? If you've seen this movie before, and it's an obscene amount of money. How much money is that? It's an obscene amount of money. What you told me, he told me he had seats, right, to the Red Sox game. He goes, hey, I got to upgrade. I was like, oh, okay, that's cool. He's like, only cost me an additional $400. Only an additional $400?
It was not now you're over-exaggerating.
I don't know.
I was on a bus trip. I didn't like the seats that they got us. So I went to the Game Time app, and I went and bought 2 other tickets for $60 a piece. And I was right up front in the field.
It's not what I was told.
Hey, if you don't like where you're at, go someplace that will make you happy.
So if you could sit in Kevin Millar's lap and feed him cheese fries during a Red Sox game, I'm just asking, would you do it?
Kevin Millar? I don't know about him.
He's a sack. You got to support the sacks, right?
Maybe David Ortiz.
Oh, my God. Big Pappy.
He can call me Big Pappy.
You know what? We're not touching that at all. We are not going near that whatsoever.
But
we have...
Speaking of a man that spends an obscene amount of money.
Yes.
This man that we're going to bring in is not only a powerhouse in PPW.
Yes, he is.
But this man is in the gym more than you are in the refrigerator.
Now, when you say that, are you talking about the general audience, or are you talking about me personally?
No, you personally.
You son of a bitch. Damn you. Why? Why do you got to freaking out me like that? I actually saw this man on, and yes, I have a cough drop in my mouth because I got some sinus issues.
That's not the only thing.
That's for the after-hour show. The Metrex, World's Strongest Man, I could see this guy competing. Where they carry those big, they look like bowling balls. They're like big stones. I could see him doing this.
This man is a monster.
He is a monster.
You're gonna have to ask him about the Ryback story. It's funny.
Well, if there's a Ryback story, you know it's going to be a good story.
But hey, enough talking to me, enough talking to you. The fans that come here to see him.
The superstar.
Here he is, Mr. Isaac Ruhl.
There he is, Mr. Isaac Ruhl. It is so good to see you. You look fantastic, man. And that beard, as the kids would say, is on fleek, my friend.
Thank you. I try. Good product. Gotta get that marketing out there.
Hey, this man has his own sponsorship to the same place where I get my beard products.
That's right. Look how good that beard looks too.
I see you got okay. If we're gonna go here, because people have said mine looks like it's painted on, which in my opinion's not 100% inaccurate. Some of it might be slightly true. He has a ZZ Top beard. Yeah. He does. Yeah. You have that lumberjack. It's full. It's filled out. It's really good.
Thank you. I did have it. It was longer than Ritt's at one time, and it was just out there. Like you go back to like my first promo pics with PPW. Like the thing was huge. Like it was probably like to here. It was just massive, and I'd have to shape it like every week.
So with a beard, do you find that it gets in the way a lot of times with like eating or drinking or anything? Do you feel like it starts to get annoying when it's too long or too thick?
Yeah. When it comes to eating, the key is to like keep this trimmed.
Yes. Yes.
Now, if you get like me, I'm a big like Pat's and Geno's cheesesteak kind of guy. I like heavy cheese whiz. That's a mess. There's no way to prevent just cheese everywhere. Or like
and that's okay.
Yeah. Now wrestling coming up, training and stuff, it got in the way all the time.
Really?
Like you'd be in a headlock and it'd be like fold it back up into your mouth.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Then when the face mask came, it was just because like it's either going to look like a tampon across your face and or like I always wore the neck gaiters, but my beard was so big I'd have to like put it down, pull it up, pull the top or the bottom up, and then like shape it down.
Yep.
So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to keep it shorter now, and I kind of do like a little bit thicker, like Roman Reigns type fade on the side.
He could only wish he could have a beard like you.
Well, thank you, Mike. And I couldn't grow a beard until I was like 29.
Really?
Yeah, like everything was blotchy, and like I guess they say, the more you shave, it eventually will come, and then all of a sudden it was like, I'm gonna grow it out, because what happened was there was a bodybuilder named Frank McGrath. I shouldn't say he was, he still was a bodybuilder. And he's sponsored by Animal. And they did this marketing thing, they do like the pictures of him working out, things like that. And he was always clean shaven. Well, in this picture, he had a beard. I was like, guess I gotta grow a beard now. And I was like, I'll try it. And I shaved like every other day. Because the last time I tried to grow it out, it was all like blotchy, crappy. So I was like, well, I'm just make sure no one sees that it's crappy. And then all these years later, I was like, I'm going to grow it out and just see what happens. And it just came in full, like it was supposed to, I guess.
Well, yes, patience. Absolutely right. Ritt, what was the name of the beard company that the stuff you use?
Beardstruggle.com.
Beardstruggle.com.
Yes.
That's the stuff that the beast, Isaac Ruhl uses,
sir.
right?
Hey, sir. Hit him with the promo code.
Rule 15. RUHL 15.
Guys, get your stuff. Use Rule 15. And we're going to say it again. RUHL 15. Get your products right now. Tell any of your friends who have a beard or are aspiring beard people that they need to get one so they can use this product, because it will definitely enhance your life.
Smells amazing too. Like it lasts a long time. Ritt will tell you the scent, the different scents.
I guess the big thing I want to kind of find out here is, you're a massive guy. I mean, you're a big dude, and wrestling, it just seems like it would work for you because you have that atypical big, strong build for a wrestler. Do you feel like nowadays the wrestling has kind of changed in a way as far as going more towards the real skinny high flyer, flippy dippy
Yeah.
type of stuff we talk about?
Yeah.
How do you feel about that when you get into the ring? Obviously, the audience is supposed to feel like, okay, this person could literally take someone's head off. And then you got the flippy dippy stuff. What is your take on that? And are you a lot more old school? I think you probably are, about having the look and the intimidation and the presence to really put forth that story that you're telling in the ring.
Yeah, definitely. Actually, I was talking about this a few months ago with another guy that was on the PPW roster. I messaged him when I was like, dude, like, I don't know about all this anymore. Like, is there a place for someone like me, that's 300 pounds and, wrestles a more traditional style or more brutal style, really is what I like to say. He was kind of like, no, like, there's a place for everybody, da, 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 da. And I'm like, is there a place for storytelling yet? You know what I mean? Like, a lot of it's just like spot after spot after spot. You know what I mean? Like, I was in a seminar with D'Lo Brown where he said about, why do you lock up? Like, why do we lock up? Well, because you're simulating a combative situation.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So for me, when you're doing 20 pass-bys, like a bunch of flips, like that's not like a fight to me.
Right.
You know what I mean? It might be a Jackie Chan movie, but it's not real life. You know what I mean? So for me, like, with my background before I ever came into pro wrestling, being more of a legit background, it was like, okay, I'm simulating a fight here, so this needs to look like a fight, not a dance, not some choreographed like circus show. You know what I mean? Like, I should be mad at the person's across from me. I want to take their head off. You know what I mean? Like Lesnar. Like, I try to model my style a lot like Brock Lesnar. Out of the newer people that are out now. But yeah, it does get to you because you kind of think like, well, person A is doing 3 backflips and getting the pop of the night. You know what I mean? Meanwhile, I've had matches where I've done a Samoa drop of 2 people on my back in order just to get the same. You know what I mean? But no, you're right. You have those moments where you're like, should have I been doing this in the 80s? Like, I was probably born a couple, decades late. I should have been this age in like 85. I would have been great. You know what I mean? Or like 90.
I think it's tough too, because I feel like wrestling in a lot of ways, it goes in these fads, meaning first it was the real big muscular guys, and then it was considered the good looking slender guys, and now it's the high flyers, and they went through the luchador styles in a way. And I feel like everybody does have their place, but I do feel like people fall in love with a certain type of style for a while, and they start to not give love and appreciation for people who fill other areas or check other boxes out. And I do think the monster can still exist. I'm a big believer in that. The monster has to exist. There has to be the scary guy in the closet, what's hanging underneath your bed. There needs to be some intimidating force that people cannot quite put their finger on, because as you said before, what are you going to fear? If this is supposed to be a combative type of situation, and if everybody's doing Cirque du Soleil, then it really kind of takes you out of the element of good guy, bad guy.
Right.
Bad guy beat up good guy. He's got to try to build his way back up to fight the bad guy. Maybe he'll fend him off. Maybe he won't. So when you got into wrestling, did you feel like it was going to be difficult to find a promoter that will allow you to be who you are? Or did you feel like I'm going to have to somehow mold myself into what a promotion wants?
No, like PPW is my home promotion. I was trained with PPW. Anthony McKeegan, he feels like you, like there's a place for everybody. So, like coming out the gate, it was like when he saw me, he thought the same thing like you saw. Like, oh, he could be picking up Atlas stones and flipping trucks and stuff like that. So he never tried to mold my style, And I got to train with Mikey Whipwreck a little bit because he was one of the trainers there when I started. But I trained a lot under Tommy Swain, who, he's very old school, tell story, things like that. He's like, you're a big guy. Like, you don't need to do a flip. I mean, there's been times at class, we were training, they were doing moonsaults. I'm like, I'll try it. He's like, no, you're not. You don't need to do this. And I'm like, yes, I do. I'm going to try it. It was a miserable fail. I ended up like, what is that? Hinging myself, scorpion, pop ribs out and stuff. But I was at least willing to try, But when it comes to style, moveset, things like that, they're pretty much just like, man, you know what you're good at. You know what you look like you should be doing. Just do what you want. You know what I mean? If you really think you need to do a top rope Rana, go ahead, but it really don't make sense.
Right.
Or even a leapfrog. It doesn't make sense for you to do a leapfrog or pass by. You know what I mean? Like, you're the dude that shoulder tackles people and they fly out of the ring. So, but at the same time, they're like, hey, if you're comfortable doing it and you want to do it, do it. It's pretty freedom as far as moveset with PPW. And Anthony Keegan and my trainers and things like that.
So kind of going back in time here, kind of taking a step backwards here, when were you first introduced to wrestling? Was it something that was something you were interested in or you were into really as a kid growing up? Was it something you were playing in the living room?
Oh, yeah. I'm going to say I was like 3-4 years old, 1987, 88. And I say that because that's just how far my brain allows me to remember back. You know what I mean? I remember my little rocking chair beside my Paps recliner watching NWA and WCW and WWF at the time. He was a huge wrestling fan. My whole family was wrestling fans. And I never stopped watching it. So, like, I've seen, like, Surfer Sting live. You know what I mean? Like, that's how far back I go.
Wow.
I like to use that analogy. Like, I've seen the Four Horsemen live when it was Flair, Anderson. I think maybe Sid Vicious was at that time.
Yeah, Sid was in there.
And it was before Mongo. There was another guy. I forget his name now. Talking like early 90s. I know it was before Mongo was a horseman.
Oh, my gosh. They had a bunch of different people in there. So that would have been
short, dark hair.
Paul Roma?
Yeah, Paul Roma?
Yeah, it might have been Paul Roma. Yeah. So I go way back, like WrestleMania 3, stuff like that. Like, I'd say for maybe 2007, I wasn't as like, I watched it, but I wasn't like, oh my God, like this storyline. Maybe I'd miss a show here and there because I was doing other stuff. But as far as pay-per-views, I've seen every pay-per-view as far back as I remember. Back when you got the box with the dial.
Yes.
You got from your cable company, like the local office, drive and do all that. That's how long I've been watching.
So what was your first in love moment? Meaning like, oh my, like the moment that either you saw someone or you saw an event that was just love at first sight. Here it is. It wasn't, I'm just watching it, but it really grabbed you.
It was, I can't remember the year, but it was the Rockers against, Shawn Michaels and Marty Jannetty.
Yep.
And they were facing some horrible with names. He was a real big dude. He wore like the blue outfit, had like the
Hakeem.
The Twin Towers.
Hakeem. Was it Hakeem, Big Boss Man?
Hakeem and Boss Man.
Yeah. And I remember like yelling at the TV, as a little kid, and I had like all my action figures and stuff like that. That match was really influential. That one, looking back though, like WrestleMania 6, Hogan and Warrior. I will. you know, there will never be a match where I was so emotionally invested than that match. You know, I mean, of course, like once you're doing it, you see everything different. But
Right.
through like my whole watching as a fan, that was, you know, that was the match. And it always was the match to this day, where I'm like, that was my favorite match as a fan of all time. Because it's Superman versus Batman. Who do you root for?
It absolutely was. It was the perfect setup. And a lot of people said babyface versus babyface wasn't really going to work. But you know what? It did, because they were so beloved, and you nailed it right on there. It was Superman versus Batman. It was your hero versus their hero. It was two worlds colliding, and it was this cosmic event that, you know, if you weren't there, and the cover of the VHS was insane. Had the mountains in the background, and it had these. Oh my gosh.
Yep.
God bless Coliseum Video.
Yep. Hogan was ripping the shirt off.
Gosh.
I may have that VHS actually.
I actually do have it.
Nice. I think I might. I have a couple old ones that I got, you know, yard sales, like Goodwills and stuff, you know. I might have seen like, oh, I gotta have that, you know. But yeah, that's my favorite of all time match.
So you're watching it as a kid, you're enjoying it, you're having a good time, and then as time goes by, is it the typical, hey, I'm doing sports, I'm finding girls, I'm doing other stuff, all of a sudden you start dividing your interests, and then you come back, right?
Yeah.
The comeback, right? When the ladies aren't treating you quite well, when the sports end, you know what's always there? It's your mistress. It's wrestling. It's the thing that you can always go back to. So when did you, after you left, what did you come back to? What was the first thing that you remember when you got back into it?
Well, the first thing when I got into like super, super heavy was Will-O the Wisp, Jeff Hardy and TNA.
Wow.
And
that is very interesting.
That is my favorite gimmick of all time. It was whatever night they were on, I was like, oh yeah, TNA's on. Because I didn't watch it like super faithfully, TNA. I was like, oh yeah, that's on. Okay, stop. And it was the very first Will-O vignette came on. And I was like, what is this? Because I didn't know nothing about like the Will-O pass with Jeff Hardy at that time. And I was like, man, like I was hooked on that character immediately. And then I watched every week just to see the vignettes, like bought the Bound for Glory pay-per-view, saw, you know, for the debut off the top of the cage. I don't know if you've seen that match or not. But yeah, that character like re-hooked me hard in the wrestling.
Wow.
Like Cena kept me interested over the years. But Will-O was like, that character brought me like all in, full bore.
That is awesome.
It's a rare thing. Like people say, what was your favorite character? And I'm like, Will-O. You're like, what?
But that is so unique. But I love the way that you described it, because I didn't think about it. But now that I look back, the way he introduced Will-O, and I guess there's been reports now that he wants to bring that back in WWE now. So I think for hardcore Will-O fans like you, I think that would just be awesome to have that come back and be, you know, pumped back into the mix.
I would be so excited. Like I would not miss a second. I would probably be rewatching vignettes. You know, that character just did it for me. Like the umbrella, the entrance. I just hate the way TNA booked it. You know, like at first he came in crazy, didn't care if he got disqualified. Okay, kind of get it. But then it was just poor, weak booking after that, just to bring back regular Jeff Hardy. And I was like, this makes no sense.
Agreed.
Because imagine if you would have like broken Jeff Hardy was cool, but imagine if you would have had broken Matt Hardy with Will-O.
Ooh, that would have been a really good combination.
Yeah, like that would have been off the rails interesting with that. Like, don't get me wrong, I think the obsolete thing was cool. I actually will listen to Jeff Hardy's like obsolete song when I'm working out sometimes. But I listen to the Will-O entrance music more. And I just think the Will-O character is way more dynamic.
So when was your first time you got a glimpse of ECW?
I was 12. I know that. I was 12. I was in 7th grade. So that would have been like 95, 96-ish, something like that. The two guys from ECW that had me hooked was Sandman and New Jack. They were my guys. Big New Jack fan. Tommy Dreamer was okay. Like, I liked RVD. Who didn't like RVD? You know, but Sandman, like, coming through the crowd and the way they would sing, you know, that to me, I think is the best entrance ever wrestling with Sandman. Easily the most over entrance, you know.
That I always love that. I was down at Pro Wrestling Unplugged when the Sandman did there, and like he came in, did the whole complete entrance, ended right next to me and my buddy because we sat front row, and
Awesome.
like it was just amazing.
Nice. See, I never got to see Sandman. I've shared the locker room with RVD already, and I think I saw him on a WWE show, like a house show back when he was with them, but I never got to see Sandman or New Jack. Like, the two guys I like the most, I never got to see live in person, which kind of sucks, but you know.
So I don't know if you had the network, or do you have Peacock now where you can so going back and seeing some of these ECW things, what would you say, what was it that drew you to Sandman? Was there, and we know the entrance was awesome and whatnot, but was there anything else that you looked at the character and you thought, man, this is just so well done? Was it just the fact that he was just drunk and didn't give a shit, and he just was willing to swing from his heels? He was every man's man.
Right. It was like the every man's man. Like, he was, you know, growing up in like a blue collar family. To me, he was, I mean, he got some heat for this. He was Austin before there was an Austin. You know what I mean? Like,
good call on that one.
He looked like the dude that would like go drinking right after work on payday, like spend his check, like the whole paycheck. You know what I mean? I'm like, that's my guy right there. You know, just he looked like a normal dude. You know, like bodybuilder pants, ripped up shirt. You know, he didn't need to have like $1,000 singlet. You know what I mean? Like, you think about it, a lot of guys back in those days had to have like fancy gear. And it was like him and Justin Credible, like all the ECW guys, a lot of them didn't have fancy gear, but they could get over without it.
Right.
You know?
Well, and it actually worked because it was part of the nostalgia of what ECW was. It was supposed to be this underground fight world that was people that were just like people in the audience. You know what I mean?
Yep. Yeah, like I remember the first ECW. And again, I don't remember what the title of it was or anything. But like the fans were throwing like frying pans into the ring and like toasters. And I'm like, what is this? And I think it was I think New Jack had a staple gun match, and I'm like, what? This is the greatest thing ever. You know, because you know, like at that time, it was kind of out, the kayfabe side of it. But then you're seeing this, I'm like, these dudes are really trying to like hurt each other. Like this is legit. You know, like it was that one thing. Like no way is one guy gonna let another guy hit him with a staple gun.
The thing that Jerry has often told me in conversations, he goes, they definitely would lay it in, and they would tell you to lay it in. I mean, lay it in to make it look good, because this is what we're known for. Because if they noticed that you were not, they would chant at you. They would scream at you. And so Jerry was like, hey, when in Rome, baby, you got to do it.
Yeah. And, you know, it's crazy. Like, I worked with Mikey Whipwreck a little bit. He's like the safest striker I ever worked with. You know, he could throw a punch. It would look completely amazing. And it would be like getting your nose flicked.
Right.
I mean, but yet, like, ECW was so wild.
But see, I would say that makes what they did even more amazing than WWE and WCW, because they took exactly the vision you had, this confrontation to bring things full circle to our original conversation, make it look like a confrontation, make it look brutal, make it look like a fight, but yet they're so talented in the way they do it that they're safe with each other, but you wouldn't know any different.
Yep. Yeah, that is like when I think of wrestling, and not every match has to have kendo sticks and bats and chairs, but it should be more portrayed as more of a legit combative thing, whether it's through story or now, on the indies, you have a lot of just exhibition matches that bookers throw together and there's no story.
Right.
Well, you know what? A lot of fights on the UFC fight card, there's no story either.
No.
So you can still have it look that way. You know what I mean? You can still have a heel that doesn't have to be a chicken shit heel. Just a bully or just someone who's mad at the world for whatever reason. Battle lasting across the ring like we're fighting now. That's what I always say. We are fighting now at this point. It doesn't have to be an arm drag and a wrist lock. Collar elbow. International. Let's make this look like a fight. Whether if I'm the heel, I come across you and jump you from behind. Now we're fighting. You know what I mean? There's so many ways to get into it. You don't need to have all this like sport wrestling. It's fun to watch. It has its place. It's just not what I'm interested in.
I'm with you 100%.
Well, Isaac, I already know the story, but why don't you tell everybody how you got made the decision to, hey, I'm gonna go for it. I'm gonna train. I'm gonna become a professional wrestler.
Is this the Ryback story?
Oh no.
Okay, I was gonna say you mentioned Ryback, so he has.
Oh no. This is just what clicked in your mind finally. I go to all these shows. Yeah. I got a good repertoire. Let's try this out.
Well, it originally started at WXW in Allentown. I went there to see a show. I heard about it. I knew that, the Wild Samoan Academy existed, but it was like an hour and a half from me. And I said, there was a guy that was going to be on the show I knew. He had me go down. Asked me to come see it. He was like, all right. I walk in. Samu's sitting at the table. All right, I'm back. So Samu's sitting at the table, and he looks up at me. He's like, when are you starting, brother? I'm like,
wow.
What? Like, no. I'm just here to see the show, And Lance, his kid, was there. He's like, no, I don't think you understand. He wants to know when you're going to start training. And I'm like, oh, no. At that time, I'm like 34, 35. I'm like, I'm an old man. I'm not prepared for this. And no, brother, you got it all. So, okay, whatever. Watch the show, and I was going there. And I started going to PPW. And a lot of the names that PPW would bring in were always like, man, like, are you on the show? Like, why are you in the line for meet and greet? Like, I'll be backstage. Like, you don't need to. I'm like, no, I'm here to see the show. And like Boogeyman, for instance, like, I was in line, paid for the meet and greet, went and took a picture with him, did the normal fan thing. And he's like, hey, brother, can I get a picture with you? He's like, you're a monster. You're jacked. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. So we did this like real cool like face-off picture. And he started following me on Twitter and like everything. I was like, okay, it's really cool, But what really did it was like the last straw was D'Lo Brown. When, again, PPW had him in. I was standing in line. I went up to him. He's like, you on the show? I'm like, no. I'm like, I'm just here to meet you. Thanks for coming. He's like, no. He's like, you need to start making money off that $1 million body here. It's like, you're on the wrong side of the guardrail. You need to get over here. Like, you need to start doing this. And then that was when I really started, like, okay, I got to do this now. And I actually was in talks with Samu at WXW. And then Anthony McKeegan, owner of PPW, one day, Mike Orlando, who was my favorite wrestler at PPW, still is one of my favorite, very good friend of mine. He's like a mentor to me now. he was hurt and he was coming back. And Tony was like, hey, come here. It's like, all right. So I walk over to him, like, what's up, dude? Because I never really talked to Anthony that much. I always talked to Paul Bowe. I bought all my tickets through Paul, things like that. He's like, your boy's coming back tonight, but don't tell nobody. It's like, okay. What are you talking about? I'm like, who's my boy? It's not like I go drinking with anybody here or anything. Like, what are you talking about? And he's like, Mike's coming back, but don't tell nobody. So, all right, it's cool. I won't tell nobody. So I'm there watching, and Raven was the guy on the card, like the name on the card that night. I'm sitting there, first row. Raven's in the ring. And then all of a sudden they start playing like Raven's music in the match. I'm like, well, this is kind of weird. Then it switched to like the ECW theme music. I'm like, oh, okay. I'm like going back to my memory bank. Like, did this happen in ECW? I'm like, I kind of think it did. Whatever. Then all of a sudden, I hear a chair bang, and it's Mike Orlando all the way up to the top of the bleachers. I'm like, oh, this is how they're bringing him back. Next thing you know, the fire alarm starts going off in the building. And it was like perfectly timed. I'm like, they're calling out all the stops on this. You know, Mike comes down. You know, him and Raven are beating everybody up, whatever. Raven goes over, crowd's happy. And it was like an amazing moment. Then I go outside. Fire trucks and everything lined up outside the school. Here, the constable that they would get to do security at the show, his vest accidentally hooked onto the fire alarm.
No.
Yes, and pulled it just at the right time. Like, it was the most perfect, like, moment, unplanned, like, incidental thing I ever seen. And I was like, man, this is like the greatest thing I ever saw. Like, okay, that's it. I need to wrestle now. Like, I need to wrestle so somebody can pull the fire alarm during one of my matches. Like, that's all, you know, while making a comeback or something. Like, I need to wrestle now, you know. But that was an awesome, funny moment. I remember messaging Mike the next day. I was like, dude, was that supposed to happen? And that he was the one that told me, no, like, the constable pulled the fire alarm by accident. I was like, oh man, I hope nobody got in trouble. You know, we talked about it for a little bit, and then that was it. But I was like, well, I think I'm going to start wrestling now just for the way that moment went.
So at that stage of your life, you said you're 34, 35. Any misses in your life or anything like that you had to have a conversation with about, I'm going to do this? Or
yeah, she was actually with me at every show.
Nice.
So, yeah, and now she helps at PPW. She runs so much stuff at PPW.
That's a dream situation right there. Wow.
And she's his personal taxi.
Yeah, she drives me to all the shows. Even though, like, we'll use my car, like my Jeep, or, you know, she just drives it. Because usually, like, till I'm done with the show, I'm like, I'm not driving home. I'm getting a hotel or something. You know, she's like, you don't need to get a hotel. I'll drive. Okay, honey, you drive.
There you go.
My car keys and off we go. Yeah, she's super supportive. Actually, she actually helped convince me too. She's like, I can tell you want to do this. Like, let's do it. I was like, all right, you know, and I was at that time where I was juggling WXW or PPW, which way to go. Because we actually live 45 minutes apart. And I would normally go out there like Tuesdays and Thursdays during the weekend, and she would come out here and stay the weekends. And I was going to go WXW because I forget how it was, but the days weren't right to where if I would have went to WXW and trained, we could have kept that same like schedule of seeing each other. Where PPW, now I only really have like 1 day a week. I could see her, if that. And then the weekends and then Saturdays half my Saturdays were shot training. Right. If I didn't do my real job. But she was like, no, she's like, PPW's the way to go. It's the better trainers. Like, it's the way to go. It's the way to go. And she was right. you know, because she knew who Mikey Whipwreck was. And, you know, and everybody, because when I was a fan, I developed a lot of friendships with a lot of guys because a lot of them would ask me like lifting advice, nutrition advice, what do you do, things like that. And so I got to be friends with Mike Orlando. I got to be friends with SPF, like Johnny Moran, like all these people that were on PPW's roster. So I started asking them, like, because I didn't know who Tommy Slade was. Like, no, Tommy's the man to whatever. So Brooke was like, you need to go PPW. And I said, all right, that's what we'll do. And she's been super supportive. She's at every show. She did miss the anniversary show, but that was because of, COVID. We didn't know what the show schedule was going to be. And she'd already planned a girls' trip to Ocean City for the Wine Fest or something. And I'm like, Brooke, it's just the anniversary show because she felt horrible. I said, I'm only doing a Rumble. Like, it's no big deal, And but she felt bad. She actually had the one girl there FaceTime her so she could watch my match.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, so she could just watch, like, the little thing I did in the Rumble, and that was it. But, yeah, she's so supportive. She helps the meet and greet, any raffle, any her mom and aunt actually help with the food stand, like concessions and stuff. So yeah, like her family's like super, super supportive of the wrestling thing.
Well, let me ask you this question. Before the pandemic hit, the indies were about as hot as they've ever been. And I feel like the indies are still white hot right now as well. People are jonesing for it. And in most cases, it's some of the best shows you'll ever go to because of the intimacy, the access to the stars. It's affordable. It's just, it makes for a great weekend. It makes for a great weekend. What kind of fan